Tonight, 2 suspicious deaths took place over the weekend in Prince George. Plus, the province is looking to update existing legislation to prioritize clean energy. And having the Nordic events in Prince George has been extra special for one former Paralympian. Good evening, I'm Eddie Huband and welcome to CKPG News. We begin tonight with a pair of disturbing crime-related incidents, further displaying the issues that the city of Prince George is facing with violence on the streets. Local RCMP are investigating 2 suspicious deaths that occurred this past weekend. Adam Burles tells us more now.
On Sunday, March 10th, shortly after 10:30 a.m., the Prince George RCMP was called to a residence on the 2000 block of Quint Street for a report of a deceased woman. Corporal Jennifer Cooper says that the investigators who attended the residence determined the circumstances surrounding the woman's death were suspicious and that the Serious Crimes Unit was called in. The investigation is in its early stages and remains ongoing. On Saturday, March 9th, RCMP responded to a report of a deceased person located on the Salmon River Forest Service Road in Prince George. Frontline officers attended the scene and located a deceased person just off the roadway. The North District Major Crime Unit has taken conduct of the investigation and says that the death appears to be an isolated incident and that there is no potential danger to the public at this time. Anyone with information about either of these 2 suspicious deaths is encouraged to contact the Prince George RCMP at 250-561-3300. Adam Burles, CKPG News.
In the new legislative session, the provincial government will be updating the Clean Energy Act so that British Columbians, they say, can have access to affordable clean energy. Once again, Adam Burles reports on the new changes.
It was just under 2 months ago when the Premier announced that BC Hydro's updated capital plan would include a $36 billion investment into new community and regional infrastructure. And with a new legislative session in place, the government wants to update the existing legislation to reflect the need for clean, affordable electricity.
We have updated the objectives in the Clean Energy Act so we can ensure that people and businesses have that safe, reliable electricity that's affordable. And this is the power that we need to heat our homes and for some to drive our cars, certainly to run our businesses and for industry to make that switch.
So what are the new changes? Among them includes ensuring that BC Hydro rates do not exceed cumulative inflation and adding a new objective to ensure that BC Hydro is ready to acquire enough electricity to meet long-term climate targets.
At the time of the act, a goal was for 93% of the power that we generate here in British Columbia to be clean electricity. Well, we're already exceeding 98% and we're well on track to 100% by 2030. So it was really important that we update the regulation so it reflects that reality.
Along with the new changes to the legislation, the provincial government will be issuing calls for new power.
So this is a competitive call for power out to the independent power producing industry to come forward and bid on projects like wind turbines or solar farms and be able to generate clean, renewable electricity that we can add into the grid. It's really important that we add new energy because we know that we're going to need about 15% more electricity than we have today by the end of the decade.
BC Hydro was a net exporter of electricity for the past 5 years, with the majority of imports coming from clean sources of electricity. Adam Burles, CKPG News.
A report from the city's top cop will be presented at council tonight. It's the annual year in review for the RCMP. Cheryl Jan will be covering the council meeting tonight. She joins us now. So, Cheryl, every year the RCMP sets out a report with statistics about how crime has sort of rolled out for the previous year. What's council going to hear tonight?
Council is going to hear that the number of calls for service has actually gone down slightly, like just minimally between 2022 and 2023 by about 1,000 calls per year.
Okay.
But the number of charges sent to the Crown, which means that somebody is being actually charged, and this matter has gone to the courts, has dropped significantly from 2,100 in 2020 to 1,600 last year. So that's a fairly significant drop in the number of
charges, basically.
Yeah, basically,
right.
yeah.
And obviously there's been a lot of talk, we just had earlier in the show, recent homicides. Like, there's been a lot of talk that the city is struggling with crime right now. Do you think, is that going to show on this report, or did the numbers not really back that up?
You know what? That might come up. That might come up, but it doesn't bear out in the numbers. It might come up, obviously, because council will be asking quite the hard questions. But there's also a report that was set out in March from the Committee of the Whole, and that's basically a gathering of council without any voting authority. And what they're looking for is some support from the Ministry of Health to help them pay for all the medical costs that they incur because of, well, especially the opioid crisis. I mean, like just the numbers, it went from $28,000 in 2015 to $69,000 last year. So, you and I as taxpayers are bearing the cost of paying for a lot of the medical calls that the Ministry of Health should probably be dealing with. So we'll see what happens there.
Right. Is there anything else of interest on tonight's agenda?
Well, some downtown stats. Calls for service in the downtown, for example, have gone from 6,832 in 2020 to 8,397 in last year. So downtown is an evolving issue, I guess.
Right. All right.
So we'll hear about all that tomorrow.
Well, we will definitely follow up on this report from the RCMP tomorrow. Cheryl, Jan, thanks as always for your insight.
Always.
And BC Solicitor General Mike Farnworth says there's no evidence of widespread diversion of the province's safe supply of prescription opioids. Farnworth's comments come as Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre cited a recent drug seizure in Prince George to criticize the program. Farnworth says he's spoken to the RCMP's commanding officer in BC about the seizure last week and was told that it's simply not true that widespread diversion is happening. Smith said that last week she was concerned about diverted safe supply drugs from BC ending up across Canada, while Poilievre pledged to scrap the provincial program if he becomes Prime Minister. The province is expanding access to a new form of cancer treatment for some patients with leukemias and lymphomas. It's part of a $270 million funding announcement for cancer care in BC and a push by the NDP government to change the narrative around healthcare.
Hugo was just 2 years old when he was diagnosed with leukemia. 3 years of chemotherapy were unsuccessful.
Our oncologist looked us in the eye and he said, "This is not over. We have another option."
That option was a clinical trial called CAR T therapy, a form of immunotherapy. T cells are collected from a patient's blood, re-engineered to fight cancer cells and put back into the patient.
Starting this month, leukemia and lymphoma patients will be able to access CAR T therapy at Vancouver General Hospital, and younger patients will get treatment at BC Children's Hospital.
The first treatment will start this month. Plans are to treat 20 adults and 5 children a year.
13 days later, early in the morning, while Hugo was still sleeping, our oncologist stepped into our room and he simply passed us a piece of paper, which was Hugo's biopsy results. And in the corner, there was a little hand-drawn happy face. Hugo had no detectable trace of leukemia in his bone marrow.
Last year, the province announced a 10-year cancer action plan. Investments included expanding cancer care teams and service hours, improving cancer screening programs, and supporting cancer research.
In Budget 2024, we have dedicated a further $270 million over 3 years to fight cancer, and this money is going to very specific initiatives. It's going to cancer care treatment centers underway for Surrey, for Nanaimo, for Burnaby, for Kamloops, and also initiatives like our announcement today.
Providing more people like Hugo hope for survival.
With his courageous big brother as the donor, Hugo underwent a life-saving bone marrow transplant at BC Children's Hospital. And today we are delighted to share that Hugo is here in this room, cancer-free and restored to health.
Hugo went back to school in September, finished his first season of soccer, celebrated his 8th birthday, and is cancer-free.
A Langley family is waiting on a diagnosis for their daughter who turned 1 on Sunday. She's lived her whole life with medical issues, and because a diagnosis is so hard to come by, the parents are left to find their own answers.
Look how cute she is.
Little Goldie celebrated her first birthday this weekend, but there's nothing little about her fight.
They think she has an undiagnosed genetic disorder. She's fed through a tube because she doesn't have that ability to suck or swallow.
Born with complex medical needs, baby Goldie is a medical mystery.
She spent four and a half months at BC Children's Hospital.
Yeah. Keeping dozens of specialists, some of the best in the world, guessing.
They use the term like if she survives a lot, which is really hard to hear, obviously, as a parent.
The toddler suffers from seizures, central apnea, and brainstem dysfunction.
And I think because Goldie's not diagnosed, we've had a lot of trouble actually getting funding. We've received sort of no support financially yet from the government.
Rare disorders are so difficult to raise funds for because it's usually one person. So you may have to go back to the system. You may have to fundraise yourself to be able to find answers.
It's been the happiest of times and the most difficult of times.
We've had all these really hard, scary moments, but we've also have a lot of beautiful moments.
And it's love and support from their community that gives them the strength during those hard moments.
We weren't able to even move at some points, and these people around us just kind of held us up and sort of saved us.
For Goldie and others with undiagnosed disorders, the future is uncertain.
We've kind of made our peace that we might never sort of know.
There's been lots of moments where she's having an acute medical issue, emergency where we're like completely unsure if she's going to make it.
So the Hui Norgren family is treasuring every single moment with their little warrior.
You cutie.
Making every breath that much more precious.
The 46th annual Central Interior Science Exhibition took place at UNBC over the weekend. The Bentley Center was packed with projects from 3 different school districts as students from grades 4 to 12 covered a wide variety of topics, whether it was making your own soap, solving climate change, studying atoms, or simply the science behind popcorn. The science exhibition gives students a chance to engage in the scientific method in a fun and interactive way. Following the exhibition, 5 of our brightest young minds will be sent to Ottawa to compete in the Canada-wide Science Fair. Event organizers added that the increasingly advanced exhibits over the years shows how much science education has progressed for our students.
I'm not sure that I knew anything about quantum mechanics when I was like 12 or 13 years old. But certainly this is where we're at with the kids. We tend to think, you know, kids aren't getting smarter. Oh yeah. Yeah, I teach the equivalent of 7 Nobel Prizes in my second year chemistry courses. That is, if you took what you learned in those classes and went back in time 100 years, you'd win 7 Nobel Prizes. And that's just second year chemistry. So we have very, very smart kids, and it's wonderful to see them doing and enjoying science.
The action continues at the Caledonia Nordic Ski Club this week as the Para-Nordic World Cup Finals kicks off today, following last week's Parabiathlon World Championships. And as Tommy Osborne reports, having the games here in Prince George has been extra special for one former Paralympian.
Close to 200 para-athletes across the world will be competing in the upcoming Para-Nordic World Cup Finals. And one former Paralympian from Prince George is excited that we're able to host an international event here in our own community.
It's great, I think, just to see the competitors and some of the techniques that people are using today compared with what we were dealing with 30 years ago.
Having competed in both the 1992 and 1994 Winter Paralympics as a visually impaired Nordic skier, Dittman has enjoyed seeing how much parasports has grown since he was hitting the slopes. 92 and 94 were the 5th and 6th ever Paralympics respectively, and he says in the 32 years since then, the sporting world has made big advances to include more para-athletes in worldwide competition.
I think that has to do with just the visibility of some of the para-Nordic or para-athletes in general, whether it be summer games or winter games, for any of the events. And there's more events nowadays. The first year I went to 92, it was strictly alpine and Nordic skiing. Well, I should say in the Nordic side there was still the biathlon, but it was quite a bit smaller. Now they've got the hockeys and curling and any other number of events.
Beyond the increase in events, Dittman has also enjoyed seeing how the sports themselves evolve.
It was all just verbal between the guide and the skier. And there was, in Norway, there was one individual that was just starting to use the radios. But the majority of skiers and guides, it was just guides yelling at you.
The Para-Nordic World Cup Finals will run from March 12th to 17th at the Caledonia Nordic Ski Club. Tommy Osborne, CKPG News.
As of this morning, the lowest gas price in Prince George was sitting at $1.54.9 per liter at Costco. That also happens to be the lowest price in the province currently. Manitoba has the lowest fuel prices on average in the country right now at $1.31.5 per liter, while BC has an average price of $1.79.3 per liter.
CKPG Sports is delivered by Domino's. Feed your team tonight with a delicious mix and match combo. Chicken, pizza, pasta, or dessert for just $8.99 per item.
Well, there was plenty of local hockey action over the weekend, and Anthony Correa is here to break it all down in the weekend recap.
Plenty of hockey action this weekend, beginning with the Caribou Cougars. They began their playoffs on Friday and swept the Vancouver Northwest Hawks in 2 straight games. On Friday, it was a big 8-4 win led by Landon Alexander and William McKay, who both scored 2 goals. Then on Saturday, the Cougs came from 2 goals down, exchanged goals with the Hawks in the 3rd period before Kenya McIsaac played OT hero, scoring and sending Caribou to the next round of their playoffs 4-3 final. Now, the Cougars stick with the Lower Mainland as they head to Burnaby this weekend to take on the Vancouver Northeast Chiefs. From the Junior Cougars to the Prince George Cougars as they welcome the Vancouver Giants to town this past weekend. It was dominating hockey as the Cats swept the weekend with a couple of 5-3 and 6-3 victories. For Prince George, their stars came to play with Andre Becker, Tarek Parasak, and Zach Funk scoring 2+ goals, including Funk doing it in both games, reaching 63 goals on the season. On the Giants side, Prince George's Cameron Schmidt had an impressive homecoming as he recorded 4 points over the weekend. Overall, it was a crucial 2 wins, with Prince George continuing to battle with Portland for that #1 spot in the Western Conference. Finally, we have the Spruce Kings, who are on the road for 2 straight. It's more of the same for the boys in blue, as they dropped both their games against the Trail Smoke Eaters and the West Kelowna Warriors. Interesting to note, only 1 player recorded 2 points this weekend, and that was forward Lyndon Macau, who recorded an assist in both games. The Kings now return home with a 2-game series against the Merritt Centennials set for this Friday and this Saturday.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, one major event wrapped up this weekend at Caledonia, but have no fear, another one gets going this week. Caitlin Pobersnick was at the ski club earlier today to recap the Para-Biathlon World Championships and to also take a look at what to expect from the Para-Nordic World Cup Finals coming this week. Let's see what she had to say.
It's an unofficial training day down here at the Caledonia Nordic Ski Club. But what that means is that not a whole lot of people down here, volunteers getting some of the day off, lots of the workers, athletes as well. Only certain athletes are taking to the training course this morning. But that being said, the biathlon part of this 2-week span of skiing has finished on Sunday. And I'll give you a little bit of a rundown of what the Para-Biathlon World Championships finished with. Ukraine, Germany, USA, and Canada taking the top 4 spots out of the 11 teams. Ukraine finishing with 18 medals, Germany with 11, USA with 7, and Canada finished in that 4th slot with 6 medals. And now we head into the Para-Nordic finals this week. 15 teams attached to that. Brazil making their debut. I've been seeing them run around the city and just kind of get used to the Prince George air. And now they get to finally come down to the ski club and get some reps in. Today, an official training day. Like we said, tomorrow is an official training day for athletes. And Wednesday, the Para World Cup finals kicks off, and that goes until Sunday. That being said, the weather starting to warm up a little bit. I know that's not what many of the people working here were hoping for, with temperatures upwards of 16 degrees as of Saturday and Sunday, and some flurries, some rain in the forecast as well. The ground here starting to melt just a little bit, starting to get icy as well because of the freeze and thawing and freezing and thawing. So we'll see what the temperatures have in store for the club here. The tracks still look good. I mean, athletes again still training today, still able to get on the course. So hopefully that continues for the next few days, and hopefully we can get through until Sunday when everything finishes. But that's pretty much all we have to report on for today. Pretty lax day for everybody involved. So we'll send it back to you and the studio there, Eddie.
The TSX is up 32 points to close at 21,769. The Dow Jones is up 47 points to close at 38,770. And Canfor went up 71 cents to close at $16.82.
Good evening again, everyone. We've got a pretty unsettled forecast for the next couple of days, but it's late into the week that we are going to see a huge transition from cooler temperatures to very mild ones going forward. So here's our satellite clouds and gustier winds today. This evening, we're going to be under mostly clouds as well. And of course, looking at a chance of showers and then shifting over to a chance of flurries around midnight or overnight sometime. But there's two systems here. The first one is bringing us that chance tonight, as I said, but we have a bit of a break in between the systems. So through the afternoon tomorrow, there's the potential for some sunshine as well. Futurecast, there's our lots of instability there, a break through parts of the day, and then the next system coming in as well. So again, lots of sort of scattered precipitation. There's no real organized system that's going to impact us. It does kind of break apart as this system hits the coast and moves inland. So for the most part, we'll call it a drying trend as we get into the middle of the week. But yes, still some instability on and off with gustier winds tomorrow afternoon. Especially, we will see those winds really gusting through the afternoon hours. So you can see lots of scattered precipitation and active weather, if you will. 8 degrees for our day tomorrow, though. 3 Fort St. John, beautiful sunshine there. It's milder down through the southern half of the province, although expecting some wetter weather still along the coast for the next couple of days. Breaks, though, in between the systems. 9 in Quesnel, a beautiful day expected there. 7 in Vanderhoof, we're looking at flurries or mixed to rain showers in there for parts of the day. The same up through Fort St. James and Mackenzie and over towards Burns Lake as well. So a wet one along the west coast again tomorrow, 10 degrees, though not a bad temperature. But through the rest of the country, or a lot of the country, we're seeing beautiful sunshine. It's a little bit cooler than it was today in Winnipeg tomorrow, 4 degrees the high. Mainly sunny skies, sunshine over towards Montreal, beautiful down through Toronto, getting some spectacular weather over the next couple of days. And then quite unsettled as we go over towards the Maritimes with some rain showers or even some flurries mixed in there as well. So a sun cloud mix for our, well, kind of our early week. We've got a little bit of a break tomorrow through the afternoon potentially, but wait till you see later into the week. That's when we really start to see the shift. High pressure building, beautiful mild air coming up from the south. Of course, it'll be a bit gusty ahead of that, though, as we get ready for those warmer temperatures to be brought in. -4 tonight in Burns Lake, a little bit of snow, not a lot. Same for tomorrow, but highs of 4. And then it's later into the week and the weekend that you'll see that shift. Look at this, 11 degrees with sunshine on Sunday. That's a big difference in temperatures and, of course, the weather pattern in general. Mackenzie, -3 tonight. Clouds, a little bit of snow expected. Stray afternoon showers, a good way to say it. Tomorrow, it'll be sort of not all day, but through the afternoon, there'll be some showers. And then a bit cooler Wednesday, but back up to about 7 for Thursday, Friday, getting the sunshine just in time for the weekend. These temperatures are great in McBride, up to 7 tomorrow with showers, but look at this, 11 by Thursday. Thursday seems to be the day that we start to see the shift and bringing in some of that milder air. It all begins then. The same for Quesnel, 11 and 14 going into the weekend. You're looking at +1 tonight, though, so still quite chilly overnight. And for us, we're going to be up to about 14 and 16 degrees on into the weekend. I think you should plan some outdoor activities. It'll be beautiful. Still a little bit cooler tonight. Chance of showers and flurries. Same for tomorrow, the early half of the day. And then Thursday, 11 degrees.
CKPG Sports is delivered by Domino's. Feed your team tonight with a delicious mix and match combo. Chicken, pizza, pasta, or dessert for just $8.99 per item.
A UNBC student has taken on the challenge of starting a business to help female athletes find sporting gear. Anthony Correa caught up with Sarah Cooklison of the T-Wolves women's basketball team to learn more about It Fits for her.
Like many female athletes, Sarah Cooklison always had a hard time finding women's basketball gear.
Growing up, I played basketball in multiple sports, and finding footwear, basketball shoes in my size was next to impossible, online or in store. Availability was short.
Now the UNBC Timberwolf is starting her own business to sell female-exclusive sports gear to women athletes, with It Fits for Her providing for a variety of sports.
The main point of It Fits for Her is, like I said, it's footwear in women's sizes only. I know most about basketball, being a basketball player, but eventually I want to have multiple sports, and I just want It Fits for Her to be the place for female athletes to go for availability in their sizes, regardless of the sport. I want to do soccer, basketball, tennis, golf, rugby, all the above. I just want this to be the spot for women.
Bella Mesquita is a teammate of Sarah's and echoes the concern about finding female basketball gear and is excited about the idea of having women's sports apparel easily accessible.
I'm super excited. I know, I've known Sarah for a couple years now, and I just hearing how excited she is about it, and I think our teammates are also just ecstatic to have access to, like I said, just gear that fits us.
There's nothing for sale just yet, but Sarah has already designed her own apparel and reached out to Nike and many local businesses for opportunities to collaborate and pitch her ideas, with the hope to have some stock for athletes to wear as soon as next basketball season.
I'm already talking with a pattern maker, making designs. I have a manufacturer in line, so it's really just finishing the patterns, the custom fits, sending them over, getting the supply. Compression shirts are definitely something that can come very quickly. People design their own clothes all the time. The shoes will be gradual, a bit of a longer process with all the connections and getting in contact with Nike and Under Armour reps and things like that.
The goal is to open her own pop-up shops around Western Canada, another chance for female athletes to try on the merchandise. It Fits for Her already has a website and social media you can follow, with Sarah determined to make life easier for female athletes.
I know that doing this is something I will enjoy every single day, and yeah, that's really the motive. I just know I'm going to love it, and I really want to give back to the basketball community for what I didn't have growing up, and I think that this is going to help a lot of female athletes.
Well, we've talked a lot about accessibility within Prince George before, but now with the Para-Nordics being at Caledonia Nordic Ski Club, it's one of their priorities as well. Here's Caitlin Poppersnick to take a look at how they've stepped up the ski club to make it accessible for all.
It goes without saying that there are more protocols in place for the Para-Biathlon and Para-World Cup finals than an able-bodied event, one of which is accessibility, meaning easy access to buildings, the ability to use a wheelchair around the facility without obstruction. And Chris Goby, accessibility chair for the local organizing committee, helps figure out how best to approach all of this.
Part of my job is to come out and do site visits and look at site plans and determine how we're going to make things accessible. So a lot of ramps, you'll see some portable ramps around that teams can use if they need to have access to certain areas.
Back when these events happened in 2019, a lot of these improvements happened to the club. So this time around, a lot of the additions were already implemented, but accessibility is a constantly growing feat.
I mean, in 2019, it was definitely a bigger challenge, making the lodge accessible and stuff like that. We had to do some more major. They did a lot of landscaping out here, stuff like that to make the site accessible. So this year is just building on that, right? Trying to make things a little better. We learned a lot from that of what we needed to do.
Building ramps also comes with rules and regulations.
So ramps ideally is a foot of ramp for every inch of rise. That's an ideal slope for a ramp. That really does depend on the person using the ramp though as well. So out here, we try to shoot for that. We're actually probably above that in a lot of cases just because, we want to make it as easy to get in and out as possible.
And it doesn't stop with the accessibility on site.
We did some stuff in the hotels as well. So we provide shower chairs that they can use for the athletes. So an athlete has a place to sit down in the shower, some transfer benches, some poles that are used for support. So there's some poles in the anti-doping trailer that allow the athletes to get on and off the toilets.
Once the events are over, accessibility to the club won't be taken away. Chris Goby's goal is to keep everything as is to continue making it an accessible facility.
And hopefully there'll be some legacies to allow the club to remain accessible. So a lot of the ramps that are out here will remain with the club for other events in the future so that they can use it to keep things as accessible as possible.
Caitlin Poppersnick, CKPG News.
All right, it's time for tonight's CKP3, and it's a good one for me because I love basketball, and we've got lots of it. Enjoy in tonight's CKP3.
Tensions were high during the LSU South Carolina matchup.
6-0 run Gamecocks for Wiley, and that could be an intentional foul.
Now get this, after all of the chaos calmed down, every player who was a part of the fighting was ejected and is now ineligible to play in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And every player who left the bench was ejected but not given any type of suspension. South Carolina ended up going on to win this game 79-72. Let's follow that up with Anthony Davis's historic game.
Dropping 50, maybe even 60. Formerly Edawanda, he scored 80 wide open. First quarter. J-Mac nearly loses it. Reed's going to go left.
He finished the game with 27 points, 25 rebounds, 5 assists, and 7 steals with 3 blocks on top of that, becoming the first player to ever do so. With Davis's big performance, the Lakers beat Minnesota 120-109. Finally, a comeback from the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Shoulder shake, Clark all the way left side. Where he got extra basketball in the Big Ten Tournament Championship. Disley had the big three-pointer from the left wing. She's got a big... Clark looking for it, steps it back. It's a three on the way. It's another...
Iowa worked their way back to take the game to overtime, where they inevitably took down Nebraska 94-89 to win the Big Ten title. This takes top spot in tonight's CKP3.
That's all the time we have tonight. Thanks so much for joining us as always. Your last look this evening is Scenes from Caledonia. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.